If you want your AI agents and automations to be more reliable, cost less money, and run faster, then you have to learn how to use the code node. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the code node for non-developers. If you have zero idea how to code anything, perfect. I'm going to show you how to reap the benefits of this very powerful node in N8N. I'm going to be just walking you through real examples of how and when I might use it, how I'm prompting AI in order to generate me code that actually works from somebody who has no idea how code works, and how I'm getting the results I want by using this node. If you watch this video, I promise you're going to walk out with more information, more knowledge, more skills than you did coming in, and that's my goal today, is to help you understand how you can use the code node in your workflows to reap those benefits of greater efficiency, time saving, and cost saving. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, before we get into it, I want to jump into a quick presentation. That way you can internalize some of this information and understand why we're not using other nodes. This is what the node looks like in N8N, the beautiful code node. Let's learn how to reap its benefits. So the first question that I must answer is, why not just use the AI agent node, right? If you're using information and you want to transform it and use code, the AI agent nodes can do that internally, right? Well, there's 5 reasons why I might use a code node, or why I definitely would pick a code node over the AI agent node. Number 1, the code node is far more consistent. No matter what, if I can programmatically get something done in N8N, then I want to do that because it's going to decrease error rate and increase success rate. Number 2, there's no guessing whether it'll work. Bouncing off my last point, usually when you set up a code node to take in a data structure, format the data, transform it, prepare it, clean it, whatever you're doing with it, you're not going to have to guess if it's going to work. You set it up once and it just works. Number 3, it doesn't cost anything, right? You're not using AI agent, context, token, cost, APIs, all of that stuff. It's just native to N8N, and you can create this JavaScript code with AI in order to do the work for you. Number 4, it's much faster than an AI agent node. And number 5, it can accept more data. It doesn't have a context window. You can just throw data in, it does what it needs to programmatically, and then you can move from there on out. So what is it for? Well, you can think of the code node as a means to transform data or information within your N8N workflow. It's very important because a lot of the nodes you use, like if you're going to start a loop, if you need your data formatted for RAG, you want to extract metadata from a web page, whatever you're trying to do, the code node is a solution. And a lot of people will run to the AI agent node and use like a structured output when really it's not necessary. So that's what it's for. And what does transforming data mean? Well, I kind of just explained it. You can break it down into 2 categories: cleansing data, preparing data. If you want to add a 3rd category, even delivering data. So without further ado, let's just jump into actual real-world examples of when I might use a code node in order to see a successful result. Let's take a look at this automation. What this is doing right now is it's getting me weather data from any location I type into the chat. So this AI agent has some instructions in here. After I type in a place name or address, what it needs to do is just output the latitude of the location and the longitude. So if I type in, what are the coordinates of the Eiffel Tower? I want it to give me the latitude and longitude, because in this HTTP request I have after this AI agent node, what happens is it dynamically pulls in that latitude that it outputs and that longitude and gets me a 5-day forecast, an hourly 5-day forecast of that specific location. So that's all it's doing right now. I'll show you a quick example just so we're on the same page of where this is at, and then I'm going to tell you where I want it to be and how we can use code nodes in order to help us get there. So for example, I'll just type in a place like Detroit, Michigan. And when I send that off, this AI agent will do a good job at finding the latitude and longitude and putting it in that structured output. And then as you can see in the HTTP request get weather node, it gives me all of that information in this crazy looking format. It gives me all the dates and times with all the temperatures and dates for those times. But as you can see, the data is kind of weird. It's like hard for me to even dissect what's going on here, right? It has time, and this time is correlating to this piece of weather information. So it's all over the place, hard for a human to read, and hard for certain applications to accept. And in the chat, it's just giving me this big blob of text and information that's not really structured or nice. So let me just show you a couple of examples. Like I said, there is no one size fits all for this. Everybody is going to have a different use case, but I just want to show you all of the different things I can do with the structure of this data coming in. And by the end of this video, I hope you get some ideas yourself for when you could use a code node. So let's say I want a custom message. Let's say I want a message that tells me, hi Drake, the high today in Detroit is this, the high tomorrow will be this. It doesn't matter what the message is. Let's say I want a custom message to be formed with this data. A lot of people would think, you need to use the AI node. If you want it really custom, then yes, but if you want a structured programmatic message that is consistent and the same every time, I recommend the code node. Let me show you how I might go about that. Number one, let's open up an LLM in a different window. I'll just use ChatGPT. And now let's get a code node. So I'm going to hit that plus button in the upper right-hand corner and type in code. And now I can just delete that current code out of there and then connect it to the weather data. So now we have a code node in here. We can do so many different things with this. It is unreal. I'm going to hit save. And let's say we want to craft that custom message first. Well, what I always do is I always go to ChatGPT in order to write my code for my automations. And this is great because as a non-developer, I get to reap all of the benefits of that consistency from programming something without having to understand or learn it. It just works. It's kind of a new way of developing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to ChatGPT and I'm going to tell it exactly what I want. This part is important because you need to give good context. You need to tell it, what node are you using? What are you trying to get? What is the result that you want at the end of this? You have to tell it everything, okay? So I can type out a quick prompt. So I have some preliminary stuff typed up that I believe is super important anytime you want to generate code for an N8N code node like you're seeing here. And that is, I'm kind of giving context. First, telling it the tools I'm using, telling it what's happening, and telling it what I want it to do. So I say, I'm using N8N in order to get weather data from a specific location. I want to create a custom message around the weather data coming in using JavaScript. And the only reason I know JavaScript in order to say JavaScript right there is because that's the language we're going to be using this entire time. So in N8N, you get to select JavaScript or Python. We're just going to stick on JavaScript. Python's still in beta. We'll do that in another video. But JavaScript is really, all we need in order to reap a bunch of benefits. So we have the weather data over here on the left. And what's happening is I'm telling ChatGPT that we're using JavaScript here. And I'm saying we're using JavaScript in the code node in N8N. I like being hyper specific. You probably don't need to be, this overboard, but I like going the extra mile. And then I get into what do I want this code to do? I say, I want it to extract the high and low from the most recent day of the forecast and create me a message that says the high is, and then have the high temperature, and the low is, and then have the low temperature. I can even put this in quotations for the message that I want sent, because it will be able to extract the information based on the data and create me this message. So this will be very structured. It will always say the high is and the low is. Beautiful. And then I say, here's how the data is entering the code node. This part is important that a lot of people don't like doing, but it's just really good to give ChatGPT or the LLM you're using a sense of how is the data entering the code node. Because remember, N8N is comprised of these three sections. You have input, and then you have your node, which is a configure section, and you get an output. So these three sections are important. We need to give it the input for it to build the configuration so we can get a successful output. So in order to get this input, don't just copy and paste like this. It's kind of gross. What you can do is you can go back to the previous node after you hook it up to the code node, double click into there, and then hit that little edit button in the upper right-hand corner, that little pencil icon. And what you can do is you can easily copy and paste the code very clean. And this is going to give ChatGPT an example of what the data is structured like. So if I scroll all the way down, as you can see, we have about 357 lines. If we had more lines, I probably would say, just give a sample of the data and then send it in. But since we only have 357, I'm going to hit Control A and then Control C, and I'm going to copy all of this. Then I can hit cancel. And then I'm going to go back to ChatGPT and I'm going to show it that example of how data is entering the code node. And as you can see, I just pasted in all of that code right there, all of that JSON. And then I can give an action send off command. I can say, read the N8N documentation and create the code needed in order to accomplish this. And I said read the N8N documentation because what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on search, and I'll even put for the code node, because things are changing all the time for the code node or for N8N in general. So telling it to go refresh itself, learn about the documentation before you actually send off your prompt is going to be important. So now I'm going to send this off, and we have everything we need. When you put more time into the question that you're asking ChatGPT, the better the result will be. As you can see, it says below is an N8N JavaScript code snippet and it gives me everything that it does. So now it puts it in a beautiful code block for us, which we could have specified. And we could have said like, hey, make sure this is in a copy and paste code block. But what I love about this is it usually gives me comments here. So I'm not just going to blindly use it. I'm going to try to learn about what's happening here. And I can ask why. I can ask what does each line do. I can get really specific in actually understanding what's happening. But I'm just going to copy this and head back to N8N and test out the first iteration of how this code worked. Chances are we might get an error. If that happens, I'll show you how to fix it. So I'm going to paste in that code, and then I'm going to hit test step. And now we will wait on the output. It says waiting to execute. As you can see, it's executing now, and it gets an error. So what's happening here is on line 2, it gives you the line that the error is coming in. It's saying type error. So ChatGPT has read thousands, if not millions of errors. So just feed it the error and say, this was an error I received after running the automation, and then paste in your error, and then it's just plug and play, right? If you get another error, do the same thing. And what I like doing after the problem is solved is I like asking, hey, what happened? What went wrong? So then I can mitigate those issues the next time I'm generating code. I already know what this issue is. It's dealing with that first line right here. We need to do input all right here instead of this.get input data, because I've seen it so many times. It's like pattern recognition for your brain. You start understanding what's going on here. So at least for this error, I'm not sure if there's any more down the line. Since I asked why, I understand what's going on here. So as you can see, it changed that line 2, which is exactly what we want. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this new code that it gave me, and I'm going to hit copy, and then I'm going to go paste it into my N8N code right here. And since I refreshed the page, it's all blank, so I'll have to redo this again. But let's take it from the top with this new line 2 and check out how it did. Remember, I simply just copy and pasted the error of the code into ChatGPT and it fixed it for me. So I'll just say something like Chicago, and I will send that off. And it's going to give me the latitude and longitude, get the weather data, and then hopefully perform this code node. There we go. So it says executed successfully. Let's check the message. And the message came back, the high is 13.5 and the low is 4.3. So beautiful. This was an example of using code in order to create a custom message from a bunch of unstructured data. Well, it's pretty structured, but not structured in the way that it's easy to read as a human. So we took all of that input over on the left, configured it using 31 lines of code generated by ChatGPT, and crafted a unique message. So now, if I open up the chat, as you can see, it gives me that nice message. If you don't want those brackets, it's as simple as putting a set node and then just mapping it right there, and then test step. And now we'll just come back like that. Now, before we get into what I want to do next with the code node, using the same automation so you can kind of understand the different ways that code can actually transform your data to do different things. Before I do that, how about we hop into ChatGPT and let's ask ChatGPT for suggestions on what could code do, what could JavaScript do with this weather data. So I can go back here and I could ask it, what are other ways we could transform this weather data with a single JavaScript code node? I love doing this to get suggestions. A lot of the times when you're building out automations and agents, you have a predefined idea of exactly what you want. But if you're trying to get creative and you want to see the best ways to use it or different ways to use it, I recommend asking a question like this. I'm going to send that off with search activated. And since it has this entire chat thread, it knows what my data is looking like. It's created code around my data. So let's see a different way that we could use it. And then I'm going to get into a predefined idea I have where we actually graph this weather data. We use a public chart library in order to create code that creates a graph for us of all of this data over here on the right-hand side. So that's what's coming up next, and I'm going to show you how you could use a code node in order to accomplish that. But let's see the ideas that ChatGPT has. Before we get into the next part of the video, if you want to start reclaiming hours of your life, you want to start turning your ideas into profit, and you really want to start reaping the benefits of AI, then the AI Foundations community is where you need to be. This is where me and my team are teaching, and we have different teachers for different sectors of artificial intelligence. So if you go to the classroom, we have a bunch of videos similar to this where we dive into the depths of artificial intelligence and how you can get the most out of it to start turning your ideas into a business or into a profit, to start reclaiming hours of your life. We even have a full course on deploying agents that can completely replace your job. If you want to make money with AI, you want to become employable, then a community is the best spot to be. We have 1,300 members all trying to do the same. Everyone's from a different industry. We're all leveraging AI together, and you're doing this with a team, and the team will not let you fail. We even have a calendar with a bunch of live calls, live workshops. One just got done about an hour ago, and now we even have a networking event coming up in 4 days. So if you want to be a part of something that is going to help get you to the next level while using artificial intelligence, then the AI Foundations community is where you need to be. I'll leave a link in the description or the top pinned comment, so make sure you go check that out, and I hope to see you in the community. But now, let's get back into the video. So it says, beyond extracting the day's high and low, you can use JavaScript to convert units, Celsius to Fahrenheit, compute averages, that's another great one, group and aggregate by day, hour, or week, generate threshold-based alerts, freezing heat wave, format for human or downstream consumption, markdown tables, HTML snippets, JSON. Look at all of these different things you can do with just weather data. And one of the ones that is most beneficial for N8N in specific is the group and aggregate. So how about we create a code node that groups by day? I'm going to reply to this and I'm going to say, using what you know of the structure of my data, I want you to create code that will aggregate each day into its own N8N object. So instead of returning one object, you return as many objects as there are days. So maybe I want each day to be able to run through a loop or something. Then I'm going to need more than one item. There's 5 days, I believe, within all of this data. So if I wanted to group each day so that there were 5 items being output, I could do that with a code node too. So let's take its suggestion and let's send off this. Again, I already did a lot of the upfront work when I pasted in my data structure coming in up here. As you can see, I pasted in how the data was structured, so it knows how to use that best, and it's going to come up with an approach to do this. Another really good method of using the code node in N8N. So I'm going to copy this. It just generated the code snippet for this system. And I want to see if this works right off the bat. So I'm going to paste it in. And if it doesn't, then we can do the debugging process of copying and pasting the error into ChatGPT. I'm going to hit test step. Let's see how it works. As you can see, it actually has 7 days, not 5 days. And it grouped it by date. So it didn't only group it by date, but it gave us a min, a max, an average, and then it gave the temperatures here as well. And so very cool. Now we have 7 unique objects per week. So now we could even do something like spin it in a loop, right? And now this loop is going to run 7 times, once for each object. So maybe if I'm putting objects like these weather objects into a database or a Google Sheets, what I would do is I would do the Airtable maybe, if I'm putting this in an Airtable, and then I would loop it back to the beginning. So it would add each one of these objects as its own Airtable record, and then once all 7 have ran through, it could be done. That would be an example of grouping or aggregating data. And that was a suggestion from ChatGPT, so that was very cool. You can keep on adding to this code node as well. Now that it has successful code that works, we could tell it to return certain things for us as well. I could say, this works great. Now, let's add the Fahrenheit alongside the Celsius so both values appear for the temperature value. This could be another addition. As you can see, we end up going from really just blank data to creating something to where we can add Fahrenheit, we can add Celsius, min, max, average of each day. And this is all being done with code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and if we get an error, once again, I will be able to debug that with ChatGPT. I'm going to paste it in, test the step. Let's see how it does. And just like that, gives me 7 items with the date, and then the min in Celsius and Fahrenheit, the max in Celsius and Fahrenheit, average Celsius Fahrenheit. So we're able to create these things with code, and it works in like half a second. I'm gonna hit test step. Watch how fast that runs. 1, 2, maybe not half a second. Okay, 2 seconds, whatever. But an AI agent node would have taken years to do this. So that would be an example of aggregating data, manipulating data. And next, I want to show you how to actually use a code node in order to work alongside other applications. So there is a charting library called QuickChart. Let's say I want to create graphs with this data. Well, taking what I know, taking what ChatGPT already knows from the chat thread that we've been going with, we can give it another library, or we can give it another documentation. So it's reading the N8N documentation. But what about a charting library? So we can actually create cool graphs of this data. Well, we can give it access to that. We can give it some insight, and then we can use code in order to create these charts for us. So without further ado, let's get right into that. So we have our current code node with the 7 objects. What we can do is we can just get rid of that. Very cool what we created. But next, let's reroute the direction of this conversation, or we could even start an entirely new chat thread. But when you get going and it starts understanding, okay, these things are working, it knows, right? It knows how to start calling data. Then I recommend staying in that same chat thread. So now I can say, I want to completely pivot. I want to create charts around this data. I then say, using the raw weather data structure, create code that can make unique quickchart.io URLs. So quickchart.io is this open library that allows you to generate charts all from using their quickchart.io URL. That's literally all you have to do. If you understand how to craft a URL, you can go to any quickchart URL and get a downloadable image of any graph. So the information lies within the URL of the graph. This is the graph right here. So we can create a code node that knows how to create these URLs and then return us graphs. So that's beautiful. We'll be able to click this URL and download a graph of the weather data coming in from our previous get weather node. And we can use this data, which is hard to read as humans, turn it into a graph, all with a code node. So that's what I'm using, those unique quickchart.io URLs for displaying and graphing this data. I can say review quickchart.io documentation to understand how to make these URLs. Beautiful. Now, let me give an example. I say, this is how the output should somewhat look. I'm going to find a chart that I want it to kind of look like, and then I'm just going to go copy that URL. This looks beautiful. So I'm going to copy this entire URL because remember, this is how we're viewing the chart, is at this URL. And then I'm going to go paste it into ChatGPT. Looks crazy, but this is what's creating the charts. And then I can say, generate me the code needed in order to bring this to life. So to me, it's mind-blowing how we can use this one node to transform our data the way that we're doing this. So I'm going to send this off, and this one might take some iterating because it's a little bit more complex of a request. Not only does it have to unpack the data to see what to chart, but it also has to create this wacky looking URL in order to get us the graph or the chart we want. It thought for 10 seconds. So it's just going to go and do that now, which is pretty crazy. And it has everything in here. I'm very interested to see if this works first try. This happened in 10 seconds. I'm going to copy the code, come in here, paste it. Not going to get too excited, but we are going to try this. So I'm going to test this step, and it looks like it worked. I don't know though. If this worked, that's actually pretty wild. So I'm going to hit this edit button, and then I'm just going to copy this entire quick chart URL. And that happened all within like 15 seconds, just so you know. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it. Let's see if we can get anything. And we got literally every hour plotted in that URL with the weather data in Fahrenheit and the weather data in Celsius. Absolutely insane. I just did that entire process in about 30 seconds. And the main thing comes from knowing what to do, knowing what tools you have available, knowing how to use it. And that just comes through practice and, joining people that are also doing it or watching other people in your industry. What are they using, right? It's all about knowledge. What do you know? AI makes what you know really easy to implement. So let me get into one last thing. This worked perfectly, but if I go and I'll cancel that real quick, but if I save this and I go and I type in the chat a location, let's just say San Francisco, and I send that off, what you're going to notice is the chart isn't going to be embedded in here in this little box down here. It's going to give me the quick chart URL. So that's great. And I could just copy and paste the URL and get the San Francisco weather data. And like I said, now that I have my location and my code created, the charting library is going to work the same, right? It's going to give me that weather for San Francisco. Beautiful. But what I want to do is I want this graph to be embedded in the chat. So all we have to do is tweak the code, right? We just have to tweak it in order to embed this via Markdown rather than this JSON object with the URL. So let's do that real quick. Let's use this code node, once again, this one little code node, in order to reformat the data in the way it's coming in. So what I can do is I can just kind of message ChatGPT in order to figure this out. I can say, I want this chart to be able to come back to my N8N chat using a Markdown embed. What is the Markdown embed for this use case that would make that work? Isn't it something like, and then I'm just going to type out like something that I remembered worked. I don't really have any idea if this is going to work, but I'm just going to type out an example of what I think it is. So now it's coming up with a summary, which is beautiful. And it says Markdown image syntax. And it gives me like what that actual syntax is. So this is actually alt text, this is image URL. And so now it's telling me if your code node returns that as a chart URL, you simply drop it into the Markdown tag. I could just say, make the code do that automatically with the Markdown tag and the URL. Then I can even say the URL is coming back perfectly right now. Just drop it in the Markdown tag with the code. You can send that off. And this is kind of the way you go about using this now, using code, using N8N. This is honestly one of the best ways to solve problems in N8N is by debugging and asking questions with an AI. So then it gives me an updated code script that drops it in that Markdown tag right there. And now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go back to transform. I'm going to paste it in there to the code node. And now that I have that code pasted in there, we will see if that works, but I want to type in a location to test this out. I'm going to say Las Vegas, and then it should get me the latitude and the longitude of Las Vegas, and we'll see if that code works. It looks like it did, and it gave me the chart URL, but it didn't end up putting it in that Markdown format or that syntax. Actually, it did. It just gave it as a different output. So what we could do now is we could just add a set node, set, and then we can just drag in Markdown just like that. And now if I hit test step, it should return that back to the chat as the graph itself. There we go. So beautiful. We have that Markdown graph. Now I can type in any location I want. And because of this code node, we've done some amazing things. You can really start manipulating, transforming, and preparing data. Especially, this is a good thing if you are using RAG and point in PDF documentation. You need structured metadata and everything in between, YouTube videos, Zoom transcripts, it does not matter. I can type in any location I want now. I'll say Traverse City, Michigan, and we will see if it comes back with a nice chart for us. As you can see, it embedded that chart in the chat just like that. I could save it now if I wanted. And life is good when you know how to use the code node. That would have been a mess trying to do in the AI agent node. All right, so that has been the full code node guide for N8N. I hope you enjoyed, and there is really no one size fits all with this thing, right? You have to kind of mold it to your use case, and you have to feel out when the code node would be necessary. But if you're questioning it still, let me know in the comments, what should I use a code node for? But if you're still questioning if you should use it, give me a use case in the comment section below and ask me, Drake, would this be a good spot to use the code node? And I'll be sure to give you an answer. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It helps the channel grow, and I love seeing the comments, the likes, and subscribers. I appreciate you all so much. And if you want to take it to the next level, make sure to join the AI Foundations community where it's literally the fastest path for success. It took me years to learn what I'm teaching people how to do in 3 months now. So make sure you go join there. I'm dropping all of the knowledge alongside my team. I'll leave a link in the description and the top pinned comment. But with that being said, that's all I have for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.